guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and if you're not, I hope your day gets better. If this is your first time seeing this face, hi, welcome. My name is Amina, and if you are already subscribed, welcome back. So today's video is a makeup tutorial, and it's basically a video on how to apply makeup. It is a very beginner friendly video if you're just getting into makeup, or if you've been into makeup but you still struggle with just applying and getting your skin to look as flawless as possible. Then this video is definitely for you. I basically broke down the different steps to kind of achieving your flawless base, and all the products I use, tools that you need, the type of brushes you need, and when you need them. That is basically what this video is about. And if this is something you're interested in, keep watching, and I hope you learn a thing or two. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, bell notification, so you know when I post a new video. Please leave a comment if you enjoyed watching the video, and if you have any suggestions on videos you would like me to film with regards to makeup, leave a comment and I would be more than happy to film them. I will see you in the next clip. So to start with, one of the most important aspects of your makeup is honestly going to be your skin prep, and this doesn't necessarily mean having a 10-step routine or using 200 million products or just basically using the most expensive products. It just basically means prepping your skin to actually absorb and keep the makeup on. For me personally, I like to start with kind of hydrating my skin. My skin is currently barefaced, nothing is on my skin. I like to start with hydrating my skin before going in with my moisturizer, and maybe sometimes I use a primer. Most times I don't, because I think primers are actually overrated. So if you're new into makeup and you're thinking, I don't really have that much money to spend on every single product, if there's one product I would say skip, it would be primer. So I'm using my Laneige sleeping mask. I like how it feels on my skin, and just kind of press that into your skin nicely. Honestly, the skin prep is where you take your time and make sure that every single product goes in. Give it a second or two, just make sure that the product actually sits on your skin, as opposed to rushing through the process. Just make sure that every single product sinks in. You can already see that my skin looks glowy. It's not looking as dry as before. And the thing with makeup is, if you apply your foundation or your concealer on a dry skin, it's just going to make your makeup streaky. You know, when you apply makeup or you apply your foundation and you're blending it out and it just feels like, oh my god, it's just streaks, and you're wondering why. That is not the only reason, but that's definitely one of the reasons. Next, I'm going to apply moisturizer, and in this case I'm using the Advanced Snail Mucin all-in-one cream. And again, this is just one of the moisturizers I like using because I like how it blends and I like how it sits on my skin. You don't have to use this one. Any moisturizer you have would actually do. After applying my moisturizer, I just give it a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds to just let it sink into my skin and let it like let my skin soak in every single product before applying more. And because with makeup, you're basically applying a lot of products on your face, you want to make sure that you're giving every single product time. Obviously, when you become a pro and you're applying your makeup, it's not going to be that serious. You can just like instinctually know when to go in with the next product. But as a beginner, I would definitely advise always making sure you take your time and let every single product sink in. And again, when you're learning how to do your makeup, don't practice or don't do your makeup when you're about to go out. Actually practice when you're at home and doing nothing, or you don't have anywhere to go. Just practice your makeup. Next is your primer. I am not a big fan of primers. I just feel like it is I wouldn't say a waste of money, but I don't think they really do much, especially if you have dry skin. I don't really think they do much. Speaking for myself, I have this too. This is one of the two primers I have and I use. Most times when I use them just because I don't really notice any significant difference in my makeup, except if you have oily skin. If you have oily skin, then definitely I would say use a mattifying primer. But if you have dry skin, if you have normal to combination skin, but mainly leaning towards the dry, do you need to have a primer? Not really. Could you have a primer? Yes, you could, but you don't need to. For the sake of this video, I am going to be using my e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. If I had to pick one, the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer is one of my favorite primers, and not necessarily because it makes my makeup like stay longer or it keeps me from getting oily, but I like how it makes my makeup stick to my face. And that's basically all I do for skin prep, getting my skin ready ready for makeup. If you have oily skin, another step apart from using a mattifying primer, something else that you can do to kind of help keep your face as matte as possible for as long as possible is to use a translucent setting powder or any setting powder to just kind of set your primer and all of that before going ahead. Hold on, let's do this. You can use this and your beauty sponge or your beauty blender and just kind of press that into, and it can help to kind of maintain the oiliness on your skin before you go ahead and actually apply your foundation. The next step is one of those steps that you can skip if you're blessed and you have like flawless skin, you don't have any dark spots. Lucky you, I don't like you, but you can skip this part. But if you have dark spots, you have color acne scars, you have hyperpigmentation, you want to color correct. Ideally you want to use a color corrector, and if you don't have one, that is fine. You can use a concealer or a foundation. Some people use concealers or foundations that are a little bit lighter than their normal shade. I personally like using concealers and foundations that are darker than my skin because I feel that actually gives you a bit more coverage and it blends out together with your dark spots properly, and you're able to put that layer of foundation on it. I don't know if what I just said makes sense, but it makes sense in my head. So for that, I'm going to be using the Motif Cosmetics foundation stick. I don't necessarily have any concealer that is darker than my contour shade, which is why I am using this product, but ideally I would advise using a concealer. And the reason why I say use a concealer is because concealer actually dries out. So when you apply it on your dark spots or your hyperpigmentation, it would actually dry out matte. So again, that's why I advise that. I'm using my stick foundation. I'm just picking up the product and I'm going to apply it directly on my skin where I have the dark spots, which is here. And as you can see, I'm actually not blending out the products because I still want it to be a little bit more concentrated as opposed to just kind of blending it out with my skin. And I just use this to cover up any spots I might have. And you can always go back in with your setting powder and just kind of set the products in place so it doesn't move around. What this does is it helps you when you apply your foundation. You know, in those days when we used to do our makeup, or if you've been doing your makeup, but when you used to do our makeup and you had dark spots or you had hyperpigmentation, all you would do is actually just keep applying and applying and applying more products, thinking that it's going to cover up like the dark spots that you have, which eventually it does. But what happens is you end up having a cakey makeup and you end up having like a lot of product on your face, which you don't necessarily want all the time. So this is a good trick to just cover up the spots, and then you can go in with just a little bit of foundation and it will clear out or cover up every other part of your face. For foundation, I am going to be using my Fenty Beauty Pro Filter foundation. I am not the biggest fan of this foundation, but I bought it because everybody was buying it. And that's another thing again, in 2025, if you're into makeup or you're just getting into makeup, it can seem overwhelming because there's 200 million products and you don't need every single one. But then they're not in-depth reviews, so you don't really know how and why you're buying certain products, but because everybody's buying it, you want to buy it. This foundation, is it a good foundation? Yes, it is. Is it my favorite foundation? No, it's not, but I have it and I'm going to use it. The reason why I don't like it is it tends to run a little bit orange, and I've tried different shades. I have tried different shades of this. I'm just not able to get my shade. For your foundation, you always want to start off putting it up on your hands because it just makes it easier for you to apply and control on your skin as opposed to going in with like the product directly on your face. Again, there are certain rules to makeup and there are certain times that there are actually no rules. This is something that the more you get used to it, the more you do your makeup, you actually become an expert and you can just wing it and do whatever you want. But if you're learning, it's good to actually learn well and then you can start doing whatever it is that you want. I don't know if you guys can actually tell on camera, but it looks so orange. But I'm just going to rub that into my hands and then to blend out your foundation. If you're looking for like a flawless foundation, that flawless look, using a brush is key because I don't know, the brush just spreads the product out without soaking it in. If you use a beauty blender, it basically would let you or make you use way more product because it just soaks in the product as you're applying it on your face. I know you guys can't tell on camera, but I look very orange and that's why it's key to find your actual foundation shade, and not just your foundation shade, the foundation with the right undertone. Maybe I'll do a video on kind of like knowing how to know your undertone. I'll probably do a video on that. But yes, if you get the wrong shade of foundation and you are new into makeup, when you have the wrong shade, the wrong undertone, and you don't really even know how to do your makeup, you're blending out everything, it's just going to look very weird. So getting the right product matters. So just blend that in. As you can see, my skin is blended out, and if you want your makeup to look good, take your time with blending. If you're learning how to do your makeup, take your time with blending, because that is what's going to make your makeup look good. You might not be using the most expensive product, you might not be using the best product, but if you take your time in blending, especially your skin work, because that is the base for everything. If your skin work looks wonky and your brows look the best, you're still going to look wonky. So after using my brush, I go in with my beauty blender and just basically follow up to blend out any other harsh lines, and just slightly tap on my skin. And if you notice, when I was using my brush, I actually did not pull, and that's another thing that causes tricks to your foundation. Just tap it in. And you want to use a foundation brush that is slightly dense, and sometimes you can find them flat at the top. Those ones are really good to use because they're just easy to navigate and they spread around your face more, so they're usually easier to use. But then make sure the brush is slightly, like this one isn't too dense, but then it's still a little bit dense. So yeah, that's what you want to have. And then you use your beauty blender, a damp beauty blender, not a dry and not a wet beauty blender. You wet it, you squeeze all the life out of it, and then you use it to set the rest of your face. And you can see, like, the places where I had dark spots, they're not really peeking through my foundation, because if I hadn't color corrected them, or if I hadn't kind of covered them up, I probably would have needed more products to just help with covering the dark spots. Next is concealer. This is very important. Concealer is one thing I would say get the right product, because there are different types of concealers. There are concealers that are lightweight and oily, there are concealers that are matte, there are concealers that are more full coverage. For me, I like full coverage concealers. If you're a newbie into makeup, I would probably recommend getting concealers that are not too full coverage, but then they are buildable and they are a bit matte. And the one concealer I would recommend for anybody that is new into makeup is the Maybelline Fit Me concealers. I really like these ones. They have a good shade range. It is light and gives full coverage at the same time, and it's very easy to blend. It applies nicely. I just cannot say enough good things with this concealer. One thing you want to do is apply a shade that is just maybe one shade lighter than your actual skin color. You don't want it to be too bright, especially as someone that is starting, because blending it out can become a chore. So you want to make sure you're starting with a concealer that is almost your shade, and just apply it right here. After applying your concealer, you want to, this one I would say take it with a grain of salt. You want to let your concealer to sit a little bit on your face, but again, this is where you need to be mindful of the product you're using. There are certain products that do not dry well. There are certain concealers that do not sit and do not dry well, or they dry really fast. Some of them take their time with drying up. So if you get the wrong product and you let it sit, and then when it's time to blend, it's just going to become difficult. So I would definitely recommend the Maybelline Fit Me. Another concealer that is really, really good is the Huda Beauty Full Filter Concealer. This concealer is full coverage, and you can let it sit for 10 years honestly, and it will still blend out really nicely. But with the Maybelline one, I wouldn't advise you to leave it on for too long. Just apply it, let it sit for like a minute, and then you use your brush. For blending out your concealer, I recommend a brush, hands down. Blending with a brush is going to make it more flawless. Again, use a dense brush. This is one that is slightly angled, if you can see from the camera. You can use this. You can also use something like this, which is also dense, but then this is more like tapered. I don't really like that one, but it works just fine. And when blending out your concealer, you want to start on the edge before going in. So you just blend just the edge of the concealer, and again, take your time when blending it out. Don't rush. There's no rush, literally. Well, I mean, except if you're in a hurry to go out. But yeah, take your time in blending it out. And when you're blending it out, don't pull it down to your face. Just make sure you maintain where it is. Tapping motions, take your time and blend. And as you can see, I am pulling it up to my eyes just to kind of give it a little bit more definition. After blending out all the edges, while blending, the inner parts were kind of like still sitting and marinating, and then I'm going to use the brush and just, again, tapping motions very lightly. If you see how like the concealer is just blending out so smoothly, it's not about how much you pull and prod. And if you find that the concealer has sat on your face for a bit too long and it's a bit dried up, all you need to do is just use your setting powder and spray, let it chill for a bit just to kind of warm up or like loosen up the dryness, and then you go back in with your brush and just blend. And another trick again for blending out your products in general is you can always go back in with your foundation brush. If I apply concealer and it's a bit too harsh or it's a bit too bright, I can easily go back in with my foundation brush and literally just blend without even adding products. Just blend out any harsh lines that you have, and what it does is basically just helps to make everything blend out nicely and remove any harsh lines. Next, as you can see, the concealer is blended but it's not really popping, and I like my concealer to just kind of look like it's there a bit. I'm going to use my Huda Beauty Full Filter Concealer in the shade Brittle 6.5G. It's also not as bright as I wanted, but it's a little bit brighter. And what I do is, when I have applied the first layer of concealer, especially when applying the next one, and I want to kind of make it pop, I literally just apply it right underneath my eyes here and just, again, let it sit for a good minute and then go ahead and blend it out. So while that is settling into my skin, I'm going to use my e.l.f. blush, and this is where, again, before applying any powder product, you want to apply every single liquid product you have, because again, that just helps you blend it out perfectly. I'm going to use this brush, which is basically like an angled brush, and then I'm just going to tap 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 and blend out my blush. And with your blush, this is another product that it heavily depends on the type of product you have. So if you have a product, especially for liquid blushes, they tend to dry out a bit faster, so you don't want to let it sit in your face for too long. For this concealer, especially because I'm trying to get that bright under eye, I literally make sure I blend just underneath my eyes and then I take out the excess. So basically just tapping in, and you want to make sure you're like tapping in very lightly and not too harsh. And this is the time I kind of try to contour my nose a bit and just take it to the side of my nose. And you shouldn't feel worried if you feel like, oh my god, it's okay, I can see the harsh lines. Don't panic. What you will do is go back in with either your blush brush or your foundation brush, and again just blend out the edges of where the blush and the concealer meets. As you can see, it just already blends out nicely. Alright guys, are you seeing? It's looking like it's coming together. And the final step, which is very important, which I like, is to now use my beauty blender to just blend everything. And I go in with the same beauty blender. Remember, it has a little bit of my foundation on it, and just tap in slightly. And you want to make sure you're doing it very like light, not too like harsh, so it doesn't take away the product. And guys, that's it. You can see that my face is nicely blended. This is the important part. If you really want to define your nose, this is where I would recommend using a very like tapered brush. For me, I'm going to use this one because I'm already used to it, but I will do one side with this brush that's a bit wide, and then I'll do with like a different brush. So I'm just using my contour stick or my foundation stick that is dark for me, and just fetching the product, and I'm going to go ahead and just like apply that. Another type of brush you can use is like a flat brush like this, and this can help to give you a bit more precision. So I would just take the product like this. Do you see? This is a bit more intense because you're literally like fetching the product, as opposed to this one, which was like applying and blending at the same time. And with this, I'm going to go in with my beauty blender and just blend it out a bit. If you're looking to make your contour a bit more defined, you can go in with your concealer and just apply that at the bridge of your nose, just very tiny. And then you can use your brush or your I'm using the same brush, guys. I use the one brush for everything. Like, it just shows you that you don't really need that much product. If you have like a face wipe or a tissue paper, no, a kitchen towel, you can literally just wipe it off on it and then just tap 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 tap. See, it just helps to give the nose a bit more definition after like contouring here. And again, go in with your beauty blender. There's literally no rule to how many times you can go in and just try to blend everything together. We're actually spending a lot of time on your skin because this is the major part of your makeup, and depending on how light or how like intense you want your makeup to be, your skin is very important, because if you have heavy eyeshadow and your skin is looking wonky, your whole makeup is going to look wonky. If you have very light brows, light eyeshadow, and your skin is looking wonky, again, it's going to look wonky. So you want to try and make sure that you're blending as much as possible, and you don't want to be talking plenty like me and letting everything dry. So yeah, just blend. When you're done blending, and if you feel like you've made a mistake, you can always just go in with a little pump of your foundation, rub it in, go in with your beauty blender this time, not your blush, and just basically like tap all around. Next, we're going to go ahead and set our face. For setting the face, this is the #1 trick for a flawless makeup. You always want to set first with your regular powder, and then you go in with a setting powder. Guys, if you're looking for a recommendation for a finishing powder, this is my #1 recommendation. If you're a beginner to makeup, I always recommend Maybelline, because Maybelline products, especially the Fit Me range, they are so versatile and they're so good and easy to use, and they are not expensive. So I always recommend the Maybelline Fit Me. You would most likely find your shade. If you don't find your shade, you would find 2 shades that are very similar that you can mix together, and they're not expensive, so you can always get it. And I like that they have the foundation, they have the concealer, they have the powder. I don't know if they have like a Fit Me primer. I don't know about that. Another brand that I know that has been bringing up a lot of products recently is e.l.f. I haven't used a full range to kind of vouch for every single one, but I know that they do be copying. They do be copying a lot of like good brands, so that might be something else to try. So starting off with my Maybelline, you can see I've hit the pan. And another thing I'm doing this year, guys, I really want to make sure I use every single product I have till the end. Oh, I started last year. I want to make sure, because there's just so many different makeup products that you don't know which one to buy. It's too many. Guys, I literally just swipe around in the pan. Ignore that this is dark for me. I always forget that I get a bit lighter during the winter, and obviously I don't really go out, so the sun is not on my skin as much, so I'm a bit lighter. That's why this is as dark as it is. This is literally like my actual powder shade now, but I would go with a powder that is lighter than my skin, not as bright as a finishing powder or a setting powder, of course, but just definitely something to give you a bit more oomph under your eyes. And then just press down. You can use this beauty sponge. You can get this, I think, anywhere. You can literally order it from AliExpress or Shein, and it will come as a pack, and it's maybe like $5. But yeah, I just press into my skin and press it as much as you can, because this is basically setting everything. And then I bring it down to the bridge of my nose a little bit to kind of define my nose from when I contoured a little bit earlier. And then I take it up on my eyes, because just setting everywhere. And then this is where, again, as someone that has smile lines, I go ahead and just set my smile lines. One misconception about smile lines is you can use makeup to get rid of it. I'm sorry, you can't. Guys, there's nothing you can do with your makeup that would get rid of smile lines, that would prevent it from breaking when you have makeup on. There's nothing. Anybody that tells you that you can get rid of it, except if you're going to do, I don't know, I think people do Botox on their smile lines and that helps. Except if you are doing that, that would help. But in terms of doing your makeup that, oh, smile line proof makeup, it does not exist. Can you reduce, or can you do certain things to kind of reduce how often or how quick your smile lines would break and your makeup would settle into it? Yes, you can, but you cannot get rid of it. And again, depending on how deep your skin, your your smile lines are, that's another thing. So next we are going to go ahead and set with a setting powder. A setting powder is basically one of those translucent. It always used to be translucent before, but now there are like so many more different shades. I'm using my Huda Beauty Banana Bread. This one is a bit yellow, I think. Oh no, it wasn't transparent. I don't know if you guys remember Benign setting powder. We used that powder for a very long time. I am literally just going to set right underneath my eyes. And again, because this is like a brighter shade, I don't want it to be all over my face. I'm just focusing right underneath my eyes and just taking it down the bridge of my nose again. And because of how, I think the way setting powders are made now, I remember the days of Benign that you have flashbacks. They're a bit better now, and this is definitely one of the setting powders I would recommend if you're in the market for trying like something new. And then another one again I recommend is the Laura Mercier setting powder. That is really good if you're looking for like a good setting powder. And yeah, I'm just setting my forehead. This is where you want to make sure that you did not have creases on your face. If your smile line had kind of if the product had sunk into your smile line before putting powder, you want to go in with your beauty blender and blend it out a bit. Your under eyes, I forgot to mention, before setting with any kind of powder, you want to make sure that you had blended it out, especially if you tend to have creases under your eyes. Again, can you get rid of it completely? No, you can't. Can you do things or apply your product in certain ways that would reduce how fast the product will sink into your skin? Yes, you can. So that's something you want to bear in mind with. You should have blended out your concealer again to just make sure that the creases have not settled in, and then you set. Next, we're going to go ahead and now blend to make sure everything looks like we're a normal human being. And I'm going to be using my bronzer, and this is the Sephora Bronzed. This is the shade number 6 Ibiza, and I'm going to use a bit more like this brush, which is slightly tapered but then wide, and I'm just going to slightly tap into the product and then dust it off, because this bronzer is dark, so you want to be careful. And with makeup, less is more, and then you can always build up. You don't want to go in with one harsh line and literally spoil everything that you've done. You want to go in and build it gradually, which is fine, and literally just like wipe it around. Gone are those days where you just literally have one harsh line, boom, and you're contouring your face. You want your whole cheek to kind of look like you are blushing, even though I don't know if black people blush, yeah, but you get the gist. And you can smile to kind of give yourself a little bit of a guide, and just slightly brush the product around your cheek and upwards. As you can see, this side of my face is already looking a lot more bronzed compared to this side that just looks flat. And then I'm going to go back in and just blend here as well. And don't be afraid to like go underneath your eyes and all over your forehead, like it's fine. And as you can see, the face is a bit warm. Obviously, I still have this part here, I still have here that looks slightly like there's a harsh line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my regular powder brush and then blend the rest of my face now. And I'm just using this brush, which is basically like a fluffy brush, and I'm going to go in with this powder because this is the only light powder I have. All the other powders I have are a bit too dark for me currently because of winter, and literally just swipe, 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 swipe. You don't want to be heavy-handed. You always want to be light-handed, because if you're too heavy-handed, it's harder to correct it, as opposed to, oh, this is too small. You can always build it in and keep adding products. And yeah, just basically like blend. It's like you're applying, but then you are blending at the same time. Next, we're going to go in with powder blush to just make it pop a bit more. And I'm using this like pink blush here, and I'm just going to apply that all over. When you're done, or when you're sure everything is like blended out nicely, you want to go ahead and use your setting spray. I really like this setting spray actually because it has a very tiny nozzle, and the liquid comes out very light and disperses all over your face. So let's do that. So now that I have set my face, you can see that everything is looking nice and scrum-de-yum-yum. This is where setting your face is where, if you have dry skin or if you have oily skin and you're worried about your skin getting oily, this is kind of where it matters. And I actually forgot to mention, in choosing your foundation, that's where it matters as well, as opposed to using a primer. I know I mentioned that I'm not the biggest fan of primers, and this is why. If you have oily skin, the foundation you use matters a lot. This Fenty foundation I used, it tends to run a bit more matte, and whenever I want a bit more like of a matte look, this is what I go for in my arsenal that I currently have. If I want a light glowy makeup that looks natural, that looks like my skin is just skinning, and even after setting with powder it's still going to look glowy, I use my NARS Light Reflecting Foundation, because that tends to be a bit more just glowy and nicer. So choosing the right foundation matters a lot. Choosing the right type of foundation, choosing the right type of powder, it matters more than using like a mattifying primer, because you can use a mattifying primer and use a dewy foundation and it's not going to do anything for you. Honestly, it's still going to make your makeup look oily per se, if that's how you, because that's how most people say it. It's going to make it look oily. That's that. And then your setting spray, the setting spray I used is just basically like a this is not a mattifying spray, this is not any kind of spray that's going to make your makeup stay in place. If you're looking for that, I would recommend, which I have used, the Urban Decay All Nighter Spray. Guys, when you spray that on your face, your makeup is not, I think I used that on my wedding. When you spray that on your face, your makeup is not going anywhere. It's going to stay in place. And then I know that one of the popular one now is the One Size Setting Spray. I haven't used it personally, but I know that that is going around and it's supposed to be good. I'm going to go ahead and do my eyes off camera and I will be right back. So I am back and I went ahead to complete my eyes and my lips off camera, and all I did was honestly just apply a little bit of bronzer on my lids, mascara and lip gloss or lipstick. But basically this is the final look, and this video was basically just to show you, if you're a beginner in makeup, if you're still struggling on how to kind of get that everyday makeup look, this video is definitely for you. We just went through like the step-by-step process of how you can complete and achieve like a flawless look with minimal products and minimal tools, which I hope you actually learned a thing or two from the video. And again, if you liked the video, give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment in the comment section, and then I will see you in the next one.